The congressional hearing room fell silent as Representative Jasmine Crockett rose from her chair, her eyes locked on Senator Mike Lee across the chamber. For the past hour, Lee had been lecturing about constitutional law with his trademark condescending tone, dismissing younger lawmakers like they were law school students who hadn't done their homework. But what Crockett said next would leave the veteran senator speechless and send shockwaves through the entire political establishment. "Senator Lee," her voice cut through the tension like a blade, "you talk about the Constitution like you wrote it, but you seem to forget who actually has to live under the laws you helped create." The room went dead quiet. Lee's confident smirk vanished. Camera phones shot up around the gallery. This wasn't going to be just another boring committee hearing. This was about to become the political moment that would define both their careers. Before we dive into this incredible showdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss these explosive political moments. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The tension in that room was electric. You could feel it through the screen. Crockett had just thrown down the gauntlet to one of the Senate's most experienced constitutional scholars, and everyone knew this was about to get intense. To understand why this moment was so explosive, you need to know exactly who these two political powerhouses are and why their clash represents something much bigger than just a committee disagreement. Mike Lee had walked into that hearing room with the confidence of someone who'd been playing this game for over a decade. At 52, the Utah senator had built his entire political identity around being a constitutional expert. Harvard Law School graduate, former clerk to Justice Samuel Alito, and author of multiple books on constitutional interpretation. Lee wasn't just any senator. He was the guy other Republicans turned to when they needed someone to explain why their policies were constitutionally sound. For years, Lee had dominated these hearings with his methodical, professorial approach. He'd quote the founders, cite obscure court cases, and systematically dismantle his opponent's arguments with the precision of a legal scholar. Younger Democrats, especially the progressive wing, were his favorite targets. He'd talk down to them, question their understanding of basic constitutional principles, and often leave them fumbling for responses. Lee represented the old guard, experienced, credentialed, and absolutely convinced that his years of study gave him the moral and intellectual authority to lecture anyone who disagreed with him. He'd come into this hearing expecting another easy victory over what he probably saw as an inexperienced freshman representative who was in way over her head. But Jasmine Crockett was nothing like what Lee expected. The 43-year-old Texas representative had only been in Congress for 2 years, but she'd already made a name for herself as someone who didn't back down from fights with seasoned politicians. Before Congress, she'd been a civil rights attorney and Texas state legislator, spending her career fighting for people who didn't have powerful voices in Washington. Crockett wasn't just another politician reading from prepared talking points. She was a former prosecutor who knew how to think on her feet, a lawyer who'd spent years in courtrooms facing off against opponents who underestimated her because of her age, her gender, or her background. She'd built her career on moments exactly like this one, where someone with more experience and credentials thought they could intimidate her into silence. What made this confrontation so significant was what it represented. This wasn't just about one bill or one constitutional interpretation. This was about generational change in American politics. Lee represented the establishment, the idea that experience, credentials, and traditional authority should automatically command respect. Crockett represented the new wave, politicians who believed that lived experience, fighting for real people, and refusing to be intimidated mattered more than fancy degrees or years in office. The hearing was supposedly about voting rights legislation, but everyone in that room knew it was really about power. Lee had been systematically dismantling the arguments of Democratic witnesses for hours, using his constitutional expertise to make them look unprepared and out of their depth. The Republican strategy was clear: make the Democrats look like they didn't understand the Constitution, and therefore their policy ideas were fundamentally flawed. If Lee succeeded in doing the same thing to Crockett, it wouldn't just be another political victory. It would cement the narrative that the new generation of progressive Democrats were all flash and no substance, unable to stand up to serious constitutional scrutiny from experienced legislators. But if Crockett could hold her own, or better, yet turn the tables on Lee, it would send a message that the old ways of doing politics were changing. That experience and credentials didn't automatically win arguments anymore. That maybe, just maybe, the people who actually had to live under these laws deserved as much respect as the people who wrote legal theories about them. The entire hearing room could feel the tension building. This wasn't going to be a normal policy discussion. This was going to be a battle for the soul of American political discourse, and everyone was about to witness either Crockett's political destruction or Lee's most humiliating defeat in years. The first sign that this wasn't going to be a typical hearing came when Lee opened his questioning with what had become his signature move, the constitutional